What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers the Pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other fantastic host of this show, Nick. And Nick, Victory Monday. The Rams kicked some ass yesterday, but first and most importantly, my good brother, how are you?
I'm great, feeling the aftermath of a W, in all
Finally.
the best ways. I feel like I wish I had a football field like Tom Brady to run around and throw some like fake pump fakes and put on a jersey. Did you see that? That was really weird.
I did. Yeah, the Patriots had honored Tom Brady and they allowed him to run out of the tunnel. And I feel like every player that has been honored, when they run out of the tunnel, they go through their pregame regime. And Tom Brady's is especially attention seeking. I feel like in terms of the let's go and the fist pump and whatever, but he's the GOAT, so he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
But wow, why don't we talk about the second oldest quarterback in the league, Nick? Matthew Stafford, and the surgical performance that he had yesterday. And while we talk about Matthew Stafford, I think it's also very important to talk about the offensive line, right? Because the offensive line has been a talking point over the past two seasons. And it's a unit that needed to come together. They prioritized protecting the quarterback, Matthew Stafford, making sure that he stays upright, doesn't get hit, stays protected under pressure. And on 38 dropbacks, they only allowed 6 pressures and 2 quarterback hits and no sacks. So Matthew was kept pretty upright for the majority of the game. And if you give him time, you know how surgical he could be. And they allow for when Matthew Stafford has time in the offensive line is working together, you feel like some of those longer developing pass plays, those concepts can develop downfield, and he's just going to dice you up when he has the necessary time. So between Alaric Jackson, Steve Avila, Coleman Shelton, Joe Noteboom, and Rob Havenstein, everybody gets a game ball. Just kudos to being able to run an offense that's competent, be able to protect your quarterback, and then also be able to run the ball really well in 2 different personnel groupings. So between those two, Matthew Stafford and the offensive line, you could talk about it all day.
A+ grades for both of them. Outstanding performance. The worry was, it was like, who's going to step up? Who's Matthew Stafford going to throw the ball to? We, thought maybe Van Jefferson would squeak in a touchdown somewhere. But when you get to run the ball 40 times and you have consistently good runs and you don't abandon the run, then you allow, to open up the pass game. And then Puka Nacua, out of nowhere, left field. People are like scrambling to pick this guy up in fantasy. Nearly like a perfect game. And that connection between the old man and the kid, he may or may not have had to need a lookbook to figure out who he was. It was great.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Rams ran the ball 40 times, and I mentioned that they were able to execute while they're in multiple personnel groupings. You saw a heavier package with 12 personnel, but you also saw their standard looks out of 11 personnel, which is only going to build up the confidence of the group holistically. And it felt like we had to win at the line of scrimmage. We talked about in the last episode, you have to be able to establish the run. You have to be able to punch the rock, pound the rock in the red zone. And I think when you win at the line of scrimmage consistently and you establish a run game that then opens up some of those longer developing pass concepts, and the relationship between Matthew Stafford and Tutu Atwell and Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua, everybody's new favorite player, is developing right before our eyes. And Nick, I felt like it was that first series, that 16-play opening scoring drive that just left us optimistic for the remainder of the game and for the remainder of the season. And it just felt like it progressively got better and cleaner and more efficient as the game progressed. And I just felt like it was a thing of beauty. It felt like the more possessions that you gave this offense, the better off that they were, and more continuity they were able to build, getting in and out of the huddle, understanding things pre-snap, being able to diagnose things post-snap. They were just, the play calling was near perfection. So Sean McVay also gets an A+ in terms of play calling. And Matthew Stafford, we talked about how surgical he was. 5 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, and a 91.9 grade via PFF. So healthy, athletic, comfortable, every single positive characteristic that you could use to describe Matthew Stafford is right out on the table. He was never the 5th best quarterback in the conference. He was never the second, third best quarterback in the division. It's absolutely ridiculous the amount of disrespect that he gets for the quality of player that he is and the age that he's playing at in his 15th season with his second team after getting his ass kicked for, 12, 13 years in Detroit, coming over to Los Angeles, winning playoff games, winning a Super Bowl. The respect is warranted, and it's so great to see it all happen.
I feel like whenever there is smoke, there usually is fire. And there was a lot of smoke in the offseason regarding Matthew Stafford and how old he was And, the Rams were potentially thinking about trading him. They were taking calls, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And you think, like, after this weekend, you're like, is like Vegas like pushing out these stories to like, potentially get the public off of the Rams? Because Matthew Stafford looked like arguably the best quarterback in the league after that game. I mean, like, I didn't get to watch every game. Not, nobody did, unless you're, YouTube TV with the 4-box and the 4-box. But I wasn't able to do that. But it was a lot of bad offense. It was a lot of bad quarterback play throughout the entire league. And Matthew Stafford steps up and, no turnovers, like you said, 5 big-time throws. It was to these young receivers who are completely unproven, and steps up, and you're like, this is why you go out and you get this guy. And this truly, like, I thought the Rams could be tanking based on all the smoke and the fire from all the press releases. And now I'm like, let's go with these freaking playoffs, baby.
Yeah.
You got the
totally on the same page. You shut him down last year. He doesn't finish the season. He doesn't play any snaps in the preseason, right? I mean, you have to be able to onboard him throughout all of training camp, throughout all of the off-season meetings, throughout all of the pregame meetings. And for him to be able to step in and look like the first, second, third best quarterback in the league within the first week of the season against the Seahawks defense, who we talked about how talented they were at defensive back. Their issue was being able to get to Matthew Stafford and being able to contain the run on 40 rush calls. The combination of Kyron Williams and Cam Akers was just a little bit too consistent and difficult to stop, especially in the red zone with some of those intricate play calls and some of the ideas that they had to be able to get some of these skill players in space. Did a great job with Kyron Williams. And then on the 4th down call where McVay just, went full big balls and ran that toss play to Cam Akers where he essentially just walked in the end zone. Those are the kind of things from a play calling perspective, from an execution perspective. And you saw it like on 3rd and 4, on 3rd and 5, they went with the run. They were in empty and in necessary situations. You felt like there was a time in the second half where they started to move away from it, but it's because that's where they were executing. You were able to get that protection and that there was no pressure. Matthew Stafford was able to sit comfortably in the pocket, pick apart the defenders, let some of those longer developing pass plays come to fruition, and he created a relationship with these receivers, these young receivers in Tutu, Atwell, and Puka Nacua, seemingly overnight. This Ram Lambs statistic is unbelievable. The first duo aged 23 or younger with 100-plus receiving yards each since 1958. Nick, have you ever heard of Del Schaffner and Lamar Landry? We've all heard of Lamar Landry, but
yeah, I know them.
Yeah, 1958 football reference. I mean, Jesus Lord, the fact that was available in yesterday's game against such a talented defensive back grouping just goes to show that I think this team wants to go to the playoffs. Yeah,
I'm 100%. I didn't say it earlier. I know you did. Shout out to the offensive line because that was amazing. And that's what allows these Kyron Williams runs to be so powerful. I wore my Todd Gurley t-shirt today just to symbolize how proud I am of the run game. And fans of Rams Brothers, the pod, who listened to last week's episode will know that Dean and I said, don't abandon the run. You have to stick to the run. That's how you're going to be able to beat this team.
40 carries, Nick.
40 carries. 40. Kyron Williams, another one people are probably running to pick up. And to get 3 running touchdowns, game 1 of the season, I don't know. I feel completely different from this team last year. They feel young, super young and hungry. And for Cam Akers to go out there and actually maybe a little more running back 2 than running back 1.
Which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine. Kyron Williams stepped up in places that I don't think any of us expected him to. And maybe Dean, who called his shot last week. But still, yeah, I mean, 10 out of 10 job. I'm very excited to see what this team has. Go up against the best defense in the league next week. We'll see what we got. Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about Seattle's defense. We're like, don't abandon the run. Let's go with 40 carries. Let's pound the rock in the red zone. And they allowed 21 touchdowns last year. And look, that carries over from year to year. They're not able to defend the run well in the red zone, and that's what you take advantage of. And that's exactly what they did. I just want to spend another minute on Puka Nacua because from an offensive standpoint, Puka Nacua played a perfect game. And he was one of the rookies that we mentioned in the previous episode that is going to be hungry and needs to step up, and was essentially begging for more receptions and more targets. And I feel like the passes that he and Stafford weren't able to connect on were due to some timing issues or errant throws. But once it got going, it was a thing of beauty. I mean, this stat line, 10 receptions for 119 yards on roughly 15 targets. I mean, you talk about most targets a rookie receiver has ever had in week one since targets became an official stat in 1992. Well, that was previous record holder was Anquan Boldin, and that was in 2003. So Kurt Warner to Anquan Boldin, Matthew Stafford to Puka Nacua. But what's the difference, Nick? I'm not even sure.
Yeah. And I mean, Puka Nacua stepping up, like that third down, I think it was like 3rd and 8, that play where he caught it and he's like kept his feet in. And still, like, Matthew Stafford overthrew him on that like one deep ball, which he almost laid out and made a play for.
Yeah.
And he came as close to that as he possibly could. So yeah, I mean, shout out where it's due. Puka Nacua, offensive line, Matthew Stafford, Tutu Atwell, Kyron Williams. I think every single one of them deserve a game ball, and we haven't even gotten to the defense yet.
No, we haven't. Puka,
amazing.
Nick, Puka was the first rookie receiver to go over 100 yards since their debut, since Jamar Chase, which is only a couple of years ago. But he's the 4th player in NFL history to have 10 receptions for over 100 receiving yards in his first career game. And the last 2 players to do that were Kiki Conti in 2018, which is a name I don't even recall. And again, Anquan Boldin in 2003. It's the most ever yards by a Rams receiver in their NFL debut. And he's only the 2nd player drafted in the 5th round or later with 100-plus receiving yards in his NFL debut. So what he did was absolutely nothing short of amazing. McVay talked about how he played like a grown adult and not a rookie, because it's exactly what the hell he did. He stepped up for the absence of Cooper Kupp, who would have received 15-plus targets in this game, played his ass off, and how he's not everybody's favorite player at this point is beyond me. Kid played his ass off.
Yeah, 100%.
And so did Tutu Atwell, Nick. Tutu Atwell was the slow burner in this game. Was
Cooper Kupp is going to come back, and we're going to have Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, and it's going to be Van Jefferson might just take a seat.
I mean, 6 receptions for 119 yards. Tutu Atwell, I don't think his first reception came until late in the second quarter. The kid, I'm happy to know that he's not a bust, but to know that he's now a legitimate contributor on the offense, and quite possibly Matthew Stafford's second favorite target for the next 3 or 4 weeks. God damn it, I love this offense so far.
Yeah, I know. It's really fun. And I didn't think I'd be sitting here talking about how much fun I had watching that game. I really did not.
Yeah, I mean, this was the 2 of us as soon as the game ended. It's a live shot of Nick and I as soon as the game wrapped up. This is how I think all Rams fans truly felt as soon as the game came to a conclusion. And real quick, before we pivot over to the defense, I just want everybody to focus on Steve Avila for a second, because this could be the player that I think changes everybody's mind in terms of how Les Snead prioritizes offensive linemen in drafts. And to be able to hit on a player that's larger for his size at the guard position, for him to be an immediate plug and play, and to be able to correct a mistake that you made the year prior on Logan Bruss after you jumped into the pool to celebrate that draft pick. The next year, you go out to the team that played in the national championship and you bring in a starting caliber left guard to protect Matthew Stafford's blind side. All credit to Les Snead, all credit to this kid for stepping up and playing his ass off in his first game as a professional.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
It was amazing. We loved it. All right.
I mean, they're the reason why Matthew Stafford looks so good. So you really got to give it up.
Yeah, you do. And Matthew Stafford's great, but I mean, the offensive line, keep him protected. He's going to be able to dice you up, man.
Yeah, and that was the thing last year. It was like he didn't have a lot of time, and you need these, you need McVay's schemes to develop, and the only way to do that is when you can sit back.
Yep. So I know people weren't excited over the fact that Raheem Morris was coming back, and maybe that's understandable considering the defense, how they played last year. But the offense was so piss poor. The defense was on the field for 75% of the game. And considering he almost was a head coach for the Indianapolis Colts, and now he's back for the Rams as a defensive coordinator, per the ESPN Stats and Info / Elias Sports Bureau, that was the fewest Seahawks yards that they've ever gained in a half since 1979. If anybody remembers back to 1979, when they had 6 yards in the first half in a loss against the Rams, and then minus 13 yards in the second half for an NFL record of -7 yards. And that record still has not been touched yet.
Wow. Jeff Fisher came close.
But in terms of where we netted out yesterday, and considering the state of the modern NFL, this is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the game was very, very close. It felt like within the first half. I mean, I felt like the Rams had a couple of opportunities to knock on the door. They had that final series within the first half offensively where they almost came back and kicked a field goal after the first one was blocked. And then Brett Maher came back and made a couple of. But in the second half, this defense felt like they consistently got off the field on third down. They corrected the mistakes that they had made in the run game. And I feel like the best part about Seattle's numbers, when you look at them holistically throughout the full game, it looks like it was just cut right in half.
Yeah. I mean,
the numbers they all look like they're incomplete stats.
You had a lot of people, obviously the veteran presence of Aaron Donald making a huge statement and giving us potentially the greatest clip from week one. Gino not even realizing Aaron Donald's coming and then screaming, "Oh my God!" and then like getting the ball away like as fast as he possibly could. Literally like perfect. And I didn't even hear that in real time because I was watching like a couple games, but like to see that like coming back like as like one of the things when you're like checking Twitter and you're all just like happy scrolling because you won, you're like, oh my God, like this is grade A right here.
Phenomenal content. And that's exactly how I would feel if Aaron Donald was coming at me. And I know that some people don't necessarily believe in halftime adjustments, which, it goes one way or the other.
I believe in them. I know Peyton Manning has crap talked them, but I think the game has changed since he has been a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, there's not how many freaking tablets do these players have that they have on the sidelines to be able to diagnose film and to be able to make adjustments on the fly. And they have so many different schemes and sub packages and personnel groupings they could rotate in to be able to correct some of those mistakes. And with young kids flying around, I think that's what I love so much about the defense. It just feels like there's so much young talent that's hungry, that wants to win, that's playing aggressive with their heads on fire. And, whether it's a halftime adjustment or not, Seattle wasn't even alive in the second half of that game. I felt like Rams absolutely dominated in every single category. Third down percentage, penalty yards, the DK Metcalf penalty on Ahkello Witherspoon, which probably should have been a penalty initially, and then he got flagged for taunting. And then that just compiled into mistake after mistake after mistake for Seattle, which is a kudos and credit to the Rams' coaching staff to be able to keep all of these rookies in check. But I mean, like the greats, like Aaron Donald, he's probably the best example and the greatest player that we've ever had, the greatest player I've ever had a chance, the luxury to watch. What he said, being able to motivate himself, what he said all throughout the offseason, how do I find ways to motivate myself? Like, how do I continuously seek respect and not just seek out to be liked? I want to be able to be the greatest of all time. I want to be able to lead this young core. I want to be able to turn Byron Young and Kobe Turner into professional NFL players who can help me and make my job easier. And that's what the greats do. They make it easier on everybody else. And Aaron Donald is just the greatest that I've ever seen in that capacity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm waiting for them to put up the statue at SoFi. I don't know why they haven't done it yet.
I mean, the way that they and you know what, I was just trying to watch them when they were bringing pressure, just rushing 3, or they were trying to generate pressure by rushing 4. It felt like what they were able to do really well was create and manufacture pressure, right? Because they weren't generating a natural rush. And then you saw Byron Young get in on a couple of free rushes. And because you don't have a dynamic pass rush in that regard quite yet, you're able to introduce some of those stunts and blitz packages to get Seattle's front a little bit out of whack. And because they had 2 tackles that ended up getting banged up throughout the game, it got Geno Smith off of his spot. And when you're successful in execution in some of those blitzes and some of those stunts, just to be able to get the quarterback off their spot is sometimes a victory in its own. To be able to cause an errant throw on a 3rd and short. And some of the play calling for Seattle was a little bit all over the place down the stretch. But I was deprived of not being able to see Aaron Donald play, and the impact that he has on every single one of these games is never forgotten. He's an ageless wonder. So
honestly, I feel like it was forgotten by like the national media, like people coming in here thinking that Seattle's just going to completely blow us out. And it's like you have one of the hungriest players in the entire league who feels like he needs to restart his entire career, like his words, like he needs to start over from scratch and gain that respect again, and an immediate impact, literally every single play, like you said. So, and then for some of the young kids too, following his footsteps, Byron Young looked like he was shot out of a cannon, some of those free rushes, and Kobe Turner, was able to lock in his first NFL sack, the conductor, as they said on the TV. And I was like, hey, we called that. Well, I mean, not really. We just
no. But it was a player that I think a lot of people didn't see a ton of in the preseason. And when you're able to be the beneficiary of some of the Aaron Donald stunts and blitzes and him being able to draw double, triple teams, hey, we're talking about Greg Gaines and Ashawn Robinson last year, how they were the beneficiaries to Aaron Donald. And in New York and Tampa Bay, they're going to have a lot different of assignments and take on more responsibility. And when you play with Aaron Donald, sometimes you have to take on less responsibility and you just have to execute in the job that is brought to the table. And I think a lot of these young kids know what their job is. They know how to play football and they're hungry to do so. And that was his ask of the offseason. And it's more credit to Les Snead to be able to identify those type of kids, be able to bring them into the building and then allow them to win games on the road, hang a 30 burger on the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field in week 1 of the regular season when everybody said that you were going to suck is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. I mean, should we talk about the kind of glaring issue, which kind of figured itself out like halfway through the game?
I was going to say, is it even an issue anymore? Well, it was Brett Maher. The first kick got blocked, and then the second kick was another 56-yarder.
Which is like, I'm almost like you're setting him up to fail. It's like this guy has gone through so much mentally, like through his career, and then you trot him out there for a 57-yarder, and you're like, okay, just don't let it get returned back is like the thought I'm having. And of course it gets blocked. And then I'm, rage tweeting like special teams is going to lose us 2 to 4 games this season. And then, to go out there and do it again and actually, drill a 38-yarder and then a 54-yarder, both in big situations, and made all his extra points. I mean, like he definitely figured it out. I didn't love what I saw when the Rams had to punt once, but I think off.
Yeah. That's the only decision that I think I disagreed with. Or I think it was the one right before the half where Brett Maher ended up missing the 56-yarder, or there was the 57-yarder that ended up getting blocked on 4th and 4 that they should have just went for. Because I mean, what's the situation there? You might as well have just went for it in that situation to be able to try and convert, keep the offense on the field instead of trying your kicker out who's never kicked a field goal for your team. But it ended up, like you said, it ended up correcting itself. I'm not too concerned over the kicker conversation, and it's one I would gladly be wrong about. If Brett Maher is great for the Rams for the rest of the regular season and into the postseason, if that's the case, great, wonderful. But what I saw, I've never seen a kicker miss 5 extra points consistently in the postseason, which will always kind of stick to my memory. And until something bad happens, we're going to try and ride the wave. So all credit to Brett Maher, give him all the money, make all the 54-yarders that you would like. We will be on board. We'll jump on the bandwagon as long as no fans want to have our heads, because I feel like the remainder of our takes are pretty decent, pretty rational.
Yeah.
Pretty logical. Yeah. Sure. What else did we want to chat about before we signed off? Anything specific?
One thing. This is almost stupid to bring up, but I'm going to bring it up because it kind of grinded my gears. Only 2 bone games. Only 2 games in the bone jerseys. That's my favorite jersey in all the NFL, and we're only getting 2 games.
I'm rocking full bone right now. I mean, I got my bone hat and my bone shirt. Nick's rocking the bone hat. So clearly we're fans of the bone. Maybe we get a couple more games in the future, but it seems like, the priority is the white, the blue, whatever. I don't give a shit what they wear as long as they win football games. I really don't.
Right. And those modern throwbacks are turning into my favorite. It's overtaking the bone.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the lack of the bone. And
it's
the blue
one of the,
pants
this jersey, this is one of the cleanest looks in the NFL. Although I prefer the yellow.
Looks like Stafford has the Rams brothers hat on in that picture. It looks like a Rams brothers hat.
It does. To keep with us for the rest of the regular season and hopefully into the postseason, make sure that you guys ram it, like and subscribe. Be a part of the movement. We're going to have a hell of a lot of fun this year. It already feels like it's going to be an incredible season. And thank you guys so much for listening.
We'll be back on this feed Thursday to do a game preview of the San Francisco 49ers. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you got anything at Rams Brothers. We'll be there. Thanks for listening, guys. Horns up. Great win.
Go Rams. Let's keep stacking them. Peace out.